You ever notice this strange thing? You take a vacation, 2 weeks of doing nothing, rest, sleep as much as you want, and it seems like everything's right. You're recharging your batteries, right? That's what everyone says. Rest is the cure for burnout. But then you come back. First day, maybe second, you still feel okay. And then, like clockwork, somewhere around day 3 or 4, it hits you again. That heaviness, that feeling of dragging yourself through the day. The same exhaustion you thought you left behind on that beach or in those mountains. And here's the thing that nobody talks about. It comes back faster than it left. Way faster. Like your body and mind are making up for lost time. So what's actually happening here? Most people think burnout is like a phone battery. You use it, it drains, you plug it in, it charges back up. Simple, right? That's why everyone prescribes rest. Take a break, disconnect, recharge. But that's not how it works. Not even close. Burnout isn't about energy depletion. It's about energy direction. Think about it this way. You know those moments when you're completely absorbed in something? When hours pass like minutes? When you forget to eat, forget to check your phone, forget everything except what you're doing right now. You're not tired after that. You're alive, buzzing, more energized than when you started. Now compare that to sitting in a meeting that could have been an email. 30 minutes feels like 3 hours. You're not doing anything physically demanding. You're just sitting there. But by the end, you're drained, exhausted, ready to collapse. Same body, same brain, completely opposite energy states. So what's the difference? The difference is where your energy is going, and whether it's going somewhere that feeds you back. Your attention, your focus, your life force, whatever you want to call it, it's always flowing somewhere. Always. Even when you're resting, it's flowing. Even when you're sleeping, it's flowing. The question is never, am I using energy? The question is, where is my energy going? And what am I getting back? When your energy flows into something that resonates with who you actually are, something that matters to you on a level deeper than logic, it creates a circuit, a loop. The energy goes out, but it comes back multiplied. You give, and reality gives back. Not always immediately, not always obviously, but it comes back when your energy flows into something that doesn't resonate, something you're doing because you have to, because you should, because everyone expects it. There's no circuit. The energy just drains out, goes nowhere, disappears into a void. You give, and nothing comes back. That's burnout. It's not that you're doing too much. It's that you're doing things that don't complete the circuit. And here's why rest doesn't fix it. Because rest is just stopping the drain. You're not pouring energy into the void anymore. Good. But you're also not creating any new circuits. You're not connecting with anything that feeds you back. So you rest. The immediate drain stops. You feel better for a moment, and then you go back to the exact same energy-draining situations, the exact same incomplete circuits, and boom. Burnout returns faster than ever, because now your system remembers what it felt like to not be drained, and the contrast is even sharper. You can't rest your way out of a life that's fundamentally misaligned with your actual energy. You've probably noticed this in smaller ways. You come home from work exhausted, too tired to do anything. But then a friend calls with exciting news, or you remember that thing you've been wanting to work on, and suddenly, energy. From nowhere. Or not from nowhere. From alignment. The energy was always there. It just wasn't available for things that drain you, but for things that feed you, instantly accessible. Your burnout isn't telling you to rest more. It's telling you that something in your life is fundamentally out of sync with your actual nature. It's telling you that you're spending your days pouring energy into things that create no return, no resonance, no circuit back to you. And the solution isn't to stop pouring energy. You can't. You're alive. Energy flows. That's what being alive means. The solution is to redirect that flow. By the way, our shared space of light and awareness is on its way to 100,000 people. Thank you to everyone who subscribes and brings this moment closer. So if rest isn't the answer, what is? That's what most people get wrong. They think the opposite of burnout is doing nothing. But the opposite of burnout is doing something that creates energy instead of consuming it. Something that completes the circuit. Something that resonates. And before you think, great, so I just need to find my passion and quit my job. No, that's not what this is about. This is about understanding the actual mechanics of how energy works in your life, so you can work with reality instead of against it. Because here's what nobody tells you. You can be in the exact same situation, the exact same job, the exact same life, and experience it completely differently based on where your attention is actually landing, based on what meaning you're creating, based on which circuits you're completing. The exhaustion you feel isn't always about what you're doing. It's about what you're not doing. It's about the part of you that's screaming to express itself, to connect with something real, to create something that matters, and being ignored day after day after day. That's the energy drain, not the work itself, the suppression of what wants to come through you. So if burnout is about broken circuits, about energy going out and nothing coming back, the question becomes, how do you create circuits that work? How do you find things that actually feed you back? And this is where it gets interesting, because the answer isn't what you think. Most people approach this like a search problem. They think, I need to find the right career, the right relationship, the right city, the right lifestyle. Like there's some perfect external situation out there that will automatically create the right energy flow. But that's backwards. The circuit doesn't start outside you. It starts inside you, with what you're genuinely curious about, with what naturally pulls your attention, with what makes you forget time. Reality is constantly offering you signals, constantly showing you what wants to move through you. But most people are so busy trying to be what they think they should be, they miss it completely. You know those moments when something catches your attention and you're not sure why? When you find yourself thinking about some random idea at 2 a.m. When you get weirdly excited about something that has nothing to do with your career or your goals. That's not random. That's reality trying to show you a circuit, a path where energy flows both ways. But here's what happens. That curiosity pops up, and immediately your rational mind jumps in. But that's not practical. That's not my field. I'm not good at that. I don't have time for that. That's not serious enough. And you shut it down. You redirect your attention back to what you're supposed to be doing, back to the broken circuits, back to the drain. And you wonder why you're burnt out. The energy wants to flow somewhere. It has a direction, a natural pull. But you keep forcing it somewhere else because that's where you think it should go. And that forcing, that constant redirection against the natural current, that's what exhausts you. It's like swimming upstream every single day and wondering why you're tired. Here's something most people don't understand. The things that energize you aren't always the things that make logical sense. They're not always connected to your current skills or your past experience or your plans for the future. Sometimes what energizes you is completely sideways to your whole life trajectory. And that feels scary because it doesn't fit the narrative you've built about who you are and where you're going. But energy doesn't care about your narrative. Energy flows where there's genuine resonance, where there's real connection, where something inside you recognizes something outside you and says, yes, that. You might be an accountant who gets weirdly energized by ancient history. You might be a teacher who can't stop thinking about how cities are designed. You might be a doctor who feels most alive when you're writing poetry. And your rational mind says, but that's not my thing. That's just a hobby. That's not who I am. But what if it is who you are? What if that pull, that curiosity, that thing that lights you up? What if that's reality trying to show you a circuit that actually works? What if burnout isn't about working too hard at the wrong thing, but about not working at all on the right thing? Most people spend their entire lives building expertise in fields that drain them, while completely ignoring the things that would feed them, because those things don't seem practical or professional or serious enough. And then they wonder why success feels empty, why achieving their goals doesn't bring the satisfaction they expected, why they feel disconnected even when they're doing everything right, because they're doing everything right for someone else's version of right, not theirs. The energy knows, your body knows, that feeling of aliveness when you engage with certain things, that feeling of deadness when you engage with others. That's not random. That's information. That's reality communicating with you in the only language that can't be faked, the language of genuine resonance. But here's the tricky part. You can't force resonance. You can't logic your way into it. You can't decide what should energize you based on what makes sense, or what pays well, or what impresses people. You can only notice what actually does energize you, and then be brave enough to follow that signal even when it doesn't make sense. Most people are terrified of this, because following genuine energy means admitting that maybe you've been building the wrong life. Maybe you've been optimizing for the wrong things. Maybe you've been trying to be someone you're not. And that's scary. Really scary, because it means letting go of certainty, letting go of the plan, letting go of the identity you've worked so hard to build. But here's what happens when you don't follow it. Burnout, depression, that constant feeling of, is this really all there is? That sense that you're living someone else's life, going through someone else's motions, becoming someone else's version of successful. The energy doesn't lie. When something genuinely resonates with you, not in your head, in your body, in the way time changes, in the way everything else fades into the background, in the way you feel more yourself than you've felt in months or years. That's not a luxury. That's not something you get to after you've achieved everything else. That's the foundation. That's the circuit. That's how energy actually works. And when you align with it, when you start directing your energy toward things that genuinely resonate, something shifts. Not immediately, not obviously, but slowly, steadily, you start to feel different. Not rested, not relaxed, alive, because you're finally working with reality instead of against it. you're finally letting energy flow where it actually wants to go instead of forcing it where you think it should go. And that's when burnout starts to dissolve, not because you're doing less, but because you're doing what's actually yours to do. So here's the real question. How do you know when you've found it? How do you know when you're in a circuit that actually works versus just convincing yourself that something should work? Because this is where most people get stuck. They understand the concept. They get that they need to follow genuine energy instead of forcing themselves into broken circuits. But then they look at their life and think, okay, but how? How do I actually do this when I have bills to pay, responsibilities, people depending on me? And that's a fair question, because we're not talking about abandoning your life and moving to a mountain to find yourself. We're talking about something more subtle and more powerful than that. Here's what actually happens when you start aligning with genuine energy. You don't necessarily change what you're doing. You change how you're relating to it. You change what meaning you're making from it. Two people can have the exact same job, the exact same tasks, the exact same challenges. One is burnt out. One is energized. Why? Because they're creating different meaning. They're connecting to different aspects of what they're doing. They're completing different circuits. The burnt out person is focused on the drain, the difficult clients, the boring tasks, the things they have to do. Their attention is on what's taking from them. The energized person is focused on something else. Maybe it's the puzzle of solving a problem. Maybe it's the impact they're having on one person. Maybe it's the skill they're developing. Maybe it's something completely different. But their attention is on what's feeding them. Same situation, different circuits, completely different energy states. This is what most self-help advice misses. They tell you to change your external circumstances. Get a new job. Move to a new place. Find new people, as if the problem is out there. But the problem is never out there. The problem is where your attention is landing, what you're choosing to focus on, what meaning you're making from your experience. You can be in a dream situation and feel empty if your attention is on what's missing. You can be in a difficult situation and feel alive if your attention is on what's emerging. Here's how you know you're in a working circuit. You stop checking the clock. You stop counting the days until the weekend. You stop needing to escape. Not because everything is easy or pleasant or fun, but because you're engaged with something real. Something that matters to you on a level deeper than comfort or convenience. You might still get tired. You might still need breaks. But it's a different kind of tired. It's the tired you feel after creating something, after pushing through something difficult, after connecting with something meaningful. It's the tired that comes with satisfaction, not depletion. Burnout tired is empty. Alignment tired is full, and you can feel the difference in your body immediately. When you're aligned, challenges become interesting instead of draining. Obstacles become puzzles instead of walls. Setbacks become information instead of failure. Not because you've become more positive or optimistic, but because your energy is flowing somewhere it actually wants to go. And that changes everything about how you experience what's happening. Most people think meaning is something you find, like it's out there somewhere, waiting to be discovered. But meaning is something you create. It's something you generate through where you place your attention and what you choose to care about. And here's the thing. You're always creating meaning. Always. You can't not create meaning. The question is, are you creating meaning that feeds you or meaning that drains you? When you tell yourself, this is pointless, this doesn't matter, I'm just going through the motions, that's creating meaning. Meaning that breaks the circuit. Meaning that ensures energy only flows one way, out. When you find something worth caring about in what you're doing, even something small, I'm learning something here, I'm helping someone here, I'm building something here, that's creating meaning that completes the circuit. And the fascinating thing is, you have way more control over this than you think. You just haven't been using it consciously. Right now, in whatever you're doing, there are multiple possible meanings you could create, multiple possible things you could focus on, multiple possible circuits you could complete. Most people default to the meaning that society handed them. Success means money, status, achievement. So they focus on those things, and when those things don't feed them back, they burn out. But what if you consciously chose a different meaning? What if you decided that success means growth, or connection, or mastery, or impact, or discovery? What if you redirected your attention to those aspects of what you're already doing? The external situation might not change at all, but your experience of it would transform completely. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't pretending everything is great when it's not. This is understanding that reality is malleable based on where your attention goes and what meaning you create. You're not a passive receiver of experience. You're an active creator of meaning, and that creation either opens circuits or closes them. So here are the actual signs you're moving in the right direction. You start noticing small things that interest you, not big dramatic revelations, just quiet curiosities that pull your attention. You feel energy for things that don't make logical sense. And instead of dismissing them, you get curious about why they're pulling you. You stop needing everything to be perfect before you engage. You start experimenting, trying things, following threads just to see where they go. Time starts behaving differently. Some moments expand, some contract. You stop experiencing everything as a flat, uniform drag. You become less interested in what other people think you should be doing, and more interested in what actually resonates with you. You stop waiting for the weekend, not because every day is amazing, but because you're engaged with something that makes the days matter. And most importantly, you start to feel like yourself again. Not the self you thought you should be. Not the self other people need you to be. The self you actually are when nobody's watching and nothing's at stake. That's alignment. That's what happens when energy flows in circuits that work. Burnout told you to rest, but rest was never the answer. The answer was always this: find what's genuinely yours to do and do that. Not someday. Not after you've figured everything out. Now, in small ways, in whatever ways are available to you, because the cure for burnout isn't stopping. It's starting. Starting to pay attention to what actually moves you. Starting to create meaning that feeds you back. Starting to direct your energy toward things that create circuits instead of drains. The life force that's flowing through you right now, it wants to go somewhere. It's asking you, where? And the exhaustion you feel isn't from giving too much. It's from giving to the wrong things. So what calls to you? What pulls your attention even when it doesn't make sense? What makes you forget time? That's not random. That's reality trying to show you a circuit, trying to show you where your energy wants to flow. The question is, are you brave enough to follow it? If this video shifted something in you, write in the comments, "I'm redirecting my energy." Write it as your promise. Nobody,